Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we take another deep dive into Doomsday Last Survivors, brought to us by our friends at IGG, who are currently celebrating their 18th anniversary. So congratulations to them. And to show our appreciation, we are going to take a deep dive into the legendary heroes that are currently in the game as of June 6th, 2024. Now, there are currently, a ton to choose from, and they do have mechanics on how they work together. But to kind of clarify things out a little bit easier, we're just going to take a look at the individual troop types and those heroes that are in there. So, for example, this 5-part series is going to look like this. The first episode, we're going to run Infantry, and I'll show you the heroes that are involved there. We're going to go through, show you what heroes what they do best, and who you should pair with within the Infantry heroes. Next, we'll take a look at ranged, and we'll do the same thing. We'll take a look at what each individual ranged hero does best, and who to pair them with within the ranged heroes. Riders will do the same. Then we'll take a look at leaders and overall heroes, putting those together in the 4th episode. But finally, the 5th episode, we will take a look at how to use these heroes together to mix and match them to get some of the best benefits and usage out of all of them. Now, why do I say we're going to look at Infantry? For example, in this episode, we're going to look at Infantry only. Because I'm a huge fan of what we call hyper-focusing your troop types. Remember, this is still a pay-to-win game, so depending on how much money you plan to spend is going to determine what heroes you get, how fast you level them up, how much you get to use them, and how effective you are in the game. The best way to use your resources to be as effective as you can without spending a ton of money is to hyper-focus troop types and learn to use those troops to the best of their ability. Don't try to level up all the heroes at all the same speed from all different branches unless you plan to spend a lot of money like most whales do. Instead, choose one type of troop, infantry, ranged, or rider, and develop those wings individually first. You will find you'll have much more efficiency, and you'll be much more, you'll be able to participate at a much higher level if you hyper-focus your troop types and therefore hyper-focus your troops, your heroes. So that's why we're going to take a look at these individually. All right, this episode, we're going to take a look at infantry heroes. We're going to pair those infantry heroes with only other infantry heroes to show you how they work within the infantry hero lineup. And I'm going to go through them and rank them as I show them from 1 to 8 on how they fit within the infantry lineup. Okay? This is going to keep it as focused as we can and save all of the mix and matching for episode 5. For part 5, okay? So, let's take a look at the infantry lineup first, and let's talk about who I think is the most influential infantry hero in the game currently. His name is Thunder Peterson. You're looking at him here. He is probably the best hero in the game currently. Okay? His main ability, his main skills, provide an incredible amount of tank, provide an incredible amount of healing, and provide a decent amount of bonus damage in the back end as well when he's awakened. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about all these heroes being awakened because ideally you're going to be working as you can individually, hero at a time, to get them awakened. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean you can't use them when they're not awakened. You just have to think a little bit more about it. We're just going to talk about them as if they were awakened. So, why is Thunder Peterson the best? Well, let's take a look at his skills. Okay? Now, first off, let's notice there is a strategy button for almost every single hero. Okay? This strategy button is going to tell you what is the best theoretical way based on the developers, what they think is the best way to level up heroes or use heroes in both their talent trees as well as their skill point priorities. Now, you can follow this, and if you're brand new to the game, I suggest following the strategy. It's an okay way to go, but once you start to understand the game a little bit better, you're going to modify your heroes more to your own personal need and want, okay? So, for example, if we look at Thunder Peterson, they're going to suggest in the talent to completely do the defensive line and then do a little bit in the infantry squad, okay? This character they would use to battle in the field. He would be a leader in typically in the battlefield, or a little bit of garrison as well. Or you have the option of putting some points into garrison and using him more as a garrison hero only. Again, fully doing the defensive line, a little bit of infantry, a little bit of garrison. In my opinion, he does better when you do his talents like this. This is what I found the best use for me so far. Okay? I'm not a big fan of these ones here where they only give you a 10% chance to provide you a skill. I'm not a big fan of those buffs. So I don't use them if I don't have to. But I find this is the better setup for me. Now, I'm going to, just like I said in the basics hero video that I did previously, which I'll put a link in the description below. All of these arms are the same for every hero. So every hero that has a defensive talent tree is going to be the same defensive talent tree. So once you go through and read what every little node does, and you understand what the defensive tree does, you'll realize that every hero that has a defensive tree has the same defense tree. Okay? Every hero that has an infantry squad tree has the same infantry squad tree. They're not going to deviate based on the different infantry squad tree. You understand what I'm saying? So make sure that, like, once you go through and know what each one does, it gives you more capability to customize your heroes to your own personal needs. Now, I could go ahead and refresh this. Some people ask, is it possible if you've made a mistake on how to level this, how to do this? Truth is, you can reset it right here, and you can earn these talent reset vouchers in rewards. Save them up, use them where you need to, which gives you a lot of freedom. Customize your heroes, play with them a little bit, try them out here and there, find what works best for you, right? And use your heroes that way so that you're not having to follow someone else's lead. Do what works best for you. This works best for me, so this is how I have him leveled. Okay? Now, if we look at his skills, we can understand why he's so good. His first skill, his rage skill, provides an incredible amount of heal. He heals at a heal factor of 2,800 every second for 5 seconds. Okay? And when you pair him with someone like a Dut, for example, who generates a lot of rage, he's going to heal far more often every time he triggers that rage skill. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why he's so strong. He's got an incredibly powerful heal. I have seen battle reports where he has more troops healed than players have brought originally. So he's effectively healed their entire march more than once. The value. Now, this is a double-edged sword. This does mean that you end up with more troops in the hospital, but it does mean that in situations where he's in garrison, for example, it's more likely that you're not going to lose the fight. You're more likely to win the garrison rally or the fight against your shelter than you are to lose it, which is definitely why he's best suited for being in that defensive line or being on that garrison line directly. So you've got a ton coming in from the heal. He also reduces the attack of up to three squads in a fan-shaped area ahead of you, so he makes you more tanky. And if those are against riders, which riders do, or which they're doing more damage against riders anyways, it's an additional 15%. So you're looking at basically reducing the attack of 45% of riders when you're fighting them in the field with him, or if they're rallying you, for example. So this becomes a potent heal and a potent reduction of attack power. The second ability increases and just makes infantry much tankier, increasing infantry squad HP by 30% and defense by 10%. So again, making everybody tankier. Reducing squad's damage received from basic attacks, so makes everybody tankier. Increases counter damage about 22% while he's garrisoning. So while he's garrisoned, he's dealing more damage and making things more tanky. And finally, when garrisoned, reduces all damage taken by 12%. So again, makes everything more tanky. He then has a bonus ability. Now, I say bonus because it all depends on the wording and how these skills are worded on what they affect. So if you'll notice, this skill technically has two parts to it. It's got when garrisoning, reduces all damage taken by 12%, and then you'll notice there's a period, which means that this skill has the effect of giving him a garrison bonus, as well as a 10% chance to recover HP by a factor of 2200 when counterattacking. So this part is not contingent on him being garrisoned. You see how it's separated by that decimal point. So he gets the bonus reduction of damage when garrisoning, but this skill is basically a 10% chance to recover HP by a factor of 2200 when counterattacking. So when are you counterattacking? If you're being attacked, you're counterattacking. So it depends on who starts and who's not. This is why he works well on defense in the garrison position. In the garrison position, you're always being attacked. You're always counterattacking. You see what I'm saying? So that's all based on how things go in the field. If you're in the field and you attack first, they're counterattacking. If you run away, break combat, they attack you, now you're counterattacking. So there can be a lot of mechanics to back and forth to finding out when you're, there's a lot of mechanics to jumping away, running away. I could get into another video later about those mechanics, which we'll go into at a much later time. Just know that basically this means that when he's garrisoning, he reduces all damage taken by 12% and has a 10% chance to recover HP again by a factor of 2200 once every 6 seconds. Okay? So he basically is so strong because he heals so powerfully. He makes everybody tankier. When he's garrisoned or garrisoning, he ends up putting out a lot more damage. And then finally, when he's awakened, he increases damage for you and nearby allies by 15% after using a skill. So when he uses his skill and he reduces the attack of up to 3 squads in a fan-shaped area, he's also going to increase the damage of you and nearby allies up to 3 squads. So it's that same cone effect, right? So in the battlefield, he ends up boosting your damage, being super tanky, healing a lot. So there's tons and tons of utility around him, which is why he's ranked so high. In fact, so many people that I've spoken to rank him as one of the best heroes in the game overall because of the amount of utility that he has, being able to be used in the field or under garrison. Now, granted, his main role is garrison, but you can use him in the field as well, typically co-leading to a hero that has a skills tree. Now, like I said, he's best suited for garrison. When in garrison, the key people that you're going to want to pair him with is going to be Riven, who we'll talk about, who is a really great garrison hero. Tom, who himself is a really great garrison hero. And Ryo, who's a really great garrison hero that you can get for free. Tom and Ryo are a little bit more on the lower end of the scale right now just because they are free and there are heroes that do what they do just better. But you'll understand that. So if you're staying within the hero line, just on garrison, you're going to be looking at pairing him with Riven, Tom, or Ryo. If you're going to use him out in the field, you're going to want to pair him with somebody who's got the skills tree. So someone like a Dut, someone like Myamoto even would do well out in the battlefield. Okay, so that's Thunder. Next, let's take a look at my second ranked hero in the infantry line, and I'm going to say that's going to be a Dut. A Dut is one of my favorite heroes that's out there because she, again, also has a lot of utility. but most of it is going to be within that battlefield area. Okay, so she's got the talent tree of general, infantry, and skills. And if you'll notice, most of my skills I'm going to do almost the exact same way. I don't like making them more glass cannony. I don't like them taking more damage, so I'm not going to go that way. I'd rather put the bonuses into the infantry squad side. But because of this skill tree allowing for so much rage generation, right? We're going to want to make sure that we fill out this skills tree and then focus the rest into the infantry squad or into general if you feel like that. But truth be told, I think going into general is a waste. Okay, so into your skills, into your infantry squad. If we take a look at the strategy, it's pretty much going to tell us the same thing. The only difference is they've gone ahead and filled out the double-edged sword at the cost of this right here, the travel speed, and the infantry squad defense buff. And I honestly think that the infantry squad defense and travel speed is more important, especially when what she does is increases the infantry squad travel speed, right? She makes the travel speed faster in battle, and she wants to fight more. So it makes more sense to me to go that way. So when we're looking at Dut, we've taken a look a little bit at her talents, pardon me. You're going to focus mainly on the skills. Again, into the infantry squad. Forget about the general tab. You're going to look at her skills. Her rage skill is going to provide you a decent amount of damage, 12,000 damage, at a rage requirement of only 1,000. So she's going to be putting off 12,000 damage pretty regularly. And she also makes your squad's defense increase by 30%. Okay, and that's across the board. So even if she's leading ranged and riders, you'll notice it's not just infantry squad, it's all squads. So that's a good bonus on the defensive. Next, she's going to make infantry squad ramp up their damage. Now this is fantastic, especially because she wants to be in the battle a long time. So you pair someone with someone like Tom, or you pair her with someone like Myamoto, who like to be in the battlefield as well. So Tom has a heal, which we'll talk about, which wants him to be in the battlefield. This means that it ramps up that damage. So up to 44% of bonus damage is really, really, really great. So if you have her leading rallies, for example, which are already going to be long fights, you're going to get to that 44% increased attack almost every time. And if you lead rallies with just infantry, for example, against Antipede or against towers or fortresses, well, you're going to stay in that fight longer. You're going to maintain and get a lot more of that attack boost going out of it. Next, she makes infantry squads. This is one of the most potent infantry squad buffs, 30% to infantry squad travel speed. Makes her much more efficient in the battlefield. Also says if she gets a damage reduction debuff, there's a 50% chance to nullify that debuff and heal your squad. So it's a nice little bonus protection, which kind of keeps her, so traveling faster. There's some that have damage reduction buffs in regards to movement speed and all this kind of stuff. So if she's out in the battlefield, there's basically a 50% chance to nullify and get a heal on the back end of that. So again, a good skill to be focusing on. Her next passive skill, again, hyper focuses on infantry, increases infantry squad by an additional 40% if the remaining squad size is greater than 50%, while battling in the world map, increases defense if it's smaller. So basically, it's all these are one of the skills that's based on how you're doing, right? If you're winning, you're getting a bonus 40%, which is huge. If you're losing, you get a bonus 40% defense, which again, it is huge. In comparison to, any other things that you could get. So one of the reasons why she's so good is that she makes infantry fast, does a ton of damage. This type of skill is a nice one there as well. I like how that has the kind of the two sides to the coin. And then you've got her tribal pride, her passive skill. So once you receive skill damage, she reduces skill damage received by you and nearby allies by 20%, affects up to 5 squads. So all of a sudden now she makes everybody tankier, right? Which can be huge in the battle. So she's good for rallying, and she's really good for just like straight up offense in the battlefield. Okay, so if you're going to run her in the battlefield, some of your best pairings that you're going to want, like I mentioned, Myamoto. He's got a lot of speed that we'll talk about as well. So him and Myamoto, or her and Myamoto, make for a really fast line who do a lot of damage. Her and Tom go really well together because Tom has that sustainability, which we'll talk about. So he does really well out there. And one of the third picks I would pick for her is Robert, because Robert's got he's got some shielding and stuff that goes on that we'll talk about, and he actually does really well, kind of with her pairing out there as well. So if you've got Robert and you've got a Dut, you've got a pretty good, a pretty solid line out in infantry as well. Next, let's take a look at our rank 3, which is Myamoto. He's just been fairly newly released. He's one of the newer infantry heroes that's out there, but he is incredibly potent. He's got an AoE damage attack, so his damage does 13,000, which is more than a Dut, like we talked about, but he does it up to 3 enemy squads, each one taking a reduced 20%. So yes, it becomes less damaging the more people he hits, but basically for every additional person, it ends up being like it's still catastrophic. Like he does a ton of damage up to 3, right? So for 1,000, he's doing 13,000. It's a fair exchange for that little bit of degradation over the other ones that are taking it. One of the reasons why he's so good, again, is because he has that skills tree. He's got the skills talent tree, which, again, if you'll notice, I've got it done pretty much the exact same way as I have it done for a Dut. The only differences I have here, I'm going this way instead. I want to be able to chase down more often. Now, I said I don't like this 10% chance reduction, and I really don't. I probably think about changing. If I was going to change this, I'd probably put it over here or over here, depending. But this is just what I've been kind of playtesting currently. But again, if you look at there's a strategy for him, right? There's a strategy. And that strategy is, hold on, I backed out entirely because I'm an idiot. The strategy is almost exactly what I've done. The only difference is they've filled out the skills tree entirely, making the characters a little bit more like a glass cannon. And then obviously from here. So the game will also tell you who to pair them up with. Having Myamoto run with Thunder is really good in the field. That's actually not a bad one. The only real difference there is that I'd like to have Tom or Thunder in my garrison. So I don't typically have him running out unless I have him running with a Dut, which is a nice combination. But that's all within the strategy tree. Take a look at your strategy tab. Take a look at what how they would level it up and how they would focus their skills. The only difference is I would focus, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right? Is that how they do it? 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4, 3? Let's double check. See, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. I would go 1, 2, 4, 3. But that's just me. I like the defense a little bit better at first. I went 1, 3, 2, 4. I'm dumb even just trying to tell you guys what to do. This is my point. There's so much capability for customization and trying to do things your own way. I went with the speed first. I should have gone here. I should have gone 1, 2, 4, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4. But I had done 3 first in search for the speed. But remember, I can always go in here and I can always even change this. I can skill reset this as well. The only difference is these ones here are a lot harder to come by. So I don't use these ones as often. Right? The skill reset vouchers are much harder to come by than the talent reset vouchers. Keep that in mind. But again, it's pretty much the same thing. Once you've seen the talent trees, you've kind of seen them all. The skills thing is going to be running the same thing. The infantry squad's going to be running the same, just a little bit of variance. Right? But other than that, pretty much the same thing. Okay? Let's look at his talents. Like we talked about, he's going to do 3 targets up to 13,000 damage. So 1 target gets 13. Damage taken by each squad reduces by 20% for each additional damage. So 2 squads would take, I think that's like 10,000 damage each, and 3 squads would take like 8,000 damage each. You see what I'm saying? So like, it's still massive. You're still end up doing 860. That's still 2,400 damage to the 3 squads. 24,000 damage. See what I'm saying? So, tons of AoE damage. He provides, when leading only infantry squads, increases damage by up to 20 or up to 12%. And then counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce HP by 27%. Like, that makes him very potent in the field, right? So he ends up doing more damage. His skills go off. They reduce the HP, right? It's like a bonus extra damage. He then makes him, again, one of the most potent 15% travel speed. So you pair him with a Dut, that's a 45% travel speed to infantry, makes them very potent in the field, and a 30% attack. And then finally this one here, the squad defense by up to 20%, and then a reduction in, so counterattacks have a 20% to reduce skill damage dealt by an enemy by 28%. Right? So he does a ton of damage, and although he's a skill and pumping out infantry, he's still increasing defense, which is important to sustainability in the field, right? And all that kind of stuff. So then when you look at his other one, this is where you start to see where he gets to be a lot more faster. 25% and 40% once you get him awakened. So you pair, that's a 55% bonus travel speed boost to infantry squads. That means that they're keeping up with the riders in the field. Certain riders, not all of them. Don't get it twisted. Certain riders. Okay? So that comes down to Myamoto, but that's pretty much it for the rank 3 in my list. Next, let's take a look at number 4. I'm going to rank Eddie as my number 4, and of course, I don't even own Eddie yet. Now, why am I ranking him number 4, knowing that I don't even own him yet? Because of how effective he is in his role. He is one of your main siege heroes. So you're going to use him typically to siege other forts, other shelters, watchtowers, all that kind of stuff. Okay. The strategy is going to tell you that you're going to go ahead and put most of that into defense and then into your infantry. Again, I would probably say the same thing. I probably wouldn't go with this one here just so I could have more points in the infantry squad. Just because that's me personally. And then, of course, it gives you skill point priority. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple. For this hero, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. At least that's what the game says. But let's actually take a look at what he does. Pardon me. Let's take a look at what he does. So his rage skill pumps out 11,300 damage. Right? For 1,000 rage. And gains a shield for 2 seconds with a heal factor or a shield factor of 2,500. So basically, he's going to defend 2,500 hit points and pump out 11,300. That by itself is pretty darn good. That's a good value of points that he ends up doing a shift on. He's going to basically makes you more tanky for 2 seconds, right? And ends up dealing a decent amount of damage. It's not the highest, but it's not the lowest. Okay. Next, increases infantry squad defense by 9%. So that's going to be a flat skill across the board. And then it says, there's a period, and then it says, when your remaining squad size is less than 30%, increases counter damage by 4.5%. So this one is not independent, or this one is not dependent on having only infantry squads. This is an overarching one. So basically, this one has 2 parts. You get an infantry squad defense bonus, and when your remaining squad size, regardless of what it is less than 30%, increases counter damage, so you're going to end up doing more damage. This is a bonus for when he's sieging. This means that you don't have to do a siege or a rally, with just infantry troops. He does well, decently, sieging with all types of troops. Next, when leading only infantry troops, though, he increases counter damage dealt by an extra 44%. So if you get rallies that are just him leading infantry squads, that's a bonus 44% counter damage. That is a ridiculous amount. Okay? That is really, really good. Which is basically what happens in the field. When your remaining squad size, so we're talking about 30% and counter damage of 15%. That's infantry squad defense of 30%. I mean, that's going to make things much tankier. This is why infantry does really well. They get tanky really well. Okay. Next, we've got another passive skill, increases infantry squad HP by 9%. That's a basic skill. And then he's got another one which says during sieges. So when he's rallying someone else during a siege, basic attacks have an additional 20% chance to reduce enemy squad HP by 7.5% for 2 seconds. And it can be triggered at most once every 6 seconds. So basically, he's got a flat ability that makes his infantry squads more tanky, up to 30% at max skill. And then during sieges, they have a 20% chance to reduce the enemy squad's HP by 25%. Which, I mean, when you think about it, reducing an additional HP of 25% is... Now, you have to think of this a little bit differently because this can get confusing. It's not like they're saying that reduces HP is going to knock their HP bar down 25%. It's an additional HP reduction of 25% compared to what you already have. So if you already have a reduced HP of, say, 10% and you're getting an additional 25%, well, it's, you know, like it's an additional... It's hard to explain, but it's not like it's just going to chunk off 25% of their HP, right? Next, what we have is his Awaken skill. So when a shield is broken or disappears, reduces the HP of up to 3 nearby squads by 25 or by 20%. So his entire goal, if you think about it, right, is to get in your face and effectively remove your HP from you without having to deal damage to you. Now, he's going to do a ton of damage anyway, but this is why he's ranked where he is. He's best suited in siege, best suited for offense, leading infantry squads. If you're running just infantry squad troops, he does really, really well for that as well. And you can pair him with someone like Robert. If you're doing an infantry squad rally, pair him with someone like Thunder, or pair him with someone like Tom. Those 3 combinations will be very effective for both sieges and battlefield fighting. Okay? Now, we're already at 30 minutes in and we still have 4 more heroes to go. Let's speed this up a little. We've got Riven coming in rank 5 for me. I think Riven is fantastic. She's another new hero that's just been added to the game. She has been added, in my opinion, to take the position of Ryo on defense, also in the garrison position. Now, I don't have her unlocked as of yet, so when I do, we'll be able to talk about her talent tree then. But her skills, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Her defense, I'm going to put her mostly in defense, complete the entire defense one, and then go a little bit into infantry squad. All right. It's going to be the same pretty much throughout all. I might switch it up a little bit here and there, but if you know one defensive talent tree, you know them all. Pretty simple. You know one infantry squad tree, you know them all. Okay. So next, if you look at her skills, why she's so good. Deals damage to targets every 4 seconds to a factor of 3,900 every second for 4 seconds. So let's do some quick math. 39 times 4. So we're looking at 39 times 2 is going to be 78. Times 2 is going to be 56. So that's 15,600, which is a huge amount of damage. It's one of the highest damaging abilities in the game when you factor everything together. Now, granted, that's going to, it's effectively 4 attacks of 3,900, not, 15,000 all at once or 14,000 all at once. Right? So, but it's still one of the highest damaging from there. And if garrisoning, so if she's in defense, increases defense by an extra 32%. So she's really wants to be in that garrison defense position. She's got a flat increase of HP by 9%. When in alliance territory, she gets an additional squad defense of 15%. So if we think about it here, we're looking at 32% plus an additional 15%. That's already 47% for infantry squad defense, right? And a 30% HP buff. So like that becomes a huge, like it's a huge bonus when it all works together. You're getting another 30% HP buff when in alliance, or that's one we just looked at. Increased squad attack by 7.5%, by 24%, sorry. So you're increasing infantry squad attack by 24%. Counter attacks have a 20% chance to grant a shield with a healing factor or a shield factor of 1,700. So now she's making things tankier. Like, this is why she wants to be on the defense. You want her inside, you want her being defensive, you want her garrisoning, you want her fighting inside Alliance territory. Adds a 10% bonus or a 30% bonus to the shield. Right? When the shield is active, counter damage is increased by 27%. So her shield now has 2 different abilities. You can start to see how it gets complex, right? But one of the reasons why she does so well is because it's all done in garrison. It's all done when she's got a ton of troops underneath her, or when she's inside of our own territory, which again typically happens when you're garrisoning, right? So that's why she does what she does really well. And she does what Ryo does, but better, which is why Ryo's ranked so low and she's ranked 5. Because Ryo did exactly what is effectively this same character, just older and not nearly as vamped up. So she does the same thing. She provides a shield. She works better in a garrison. That's what she does. Okay? Who are you going to pair her with? Well, if you have her in garrison, you're going to pair her with Thunder, obviously, because Thunder's the number 1. If you don't have Thunder, you could pair her with Tom. Tom is a great garrison hero. Or you can pair her with Ryo. Ryo is also a great hero. If you have nobody else, these ones are still good options to choose from. So use them in garrison. Speaking of Tom, let's finally get to Tom. Tom is my number 6. Out of the 8 infantry heroes, Tom is ranked number 6. Now, Tom is great because of a couple of reasons, but he ranks number 6 for one major one, okay? He's a free-to-play hero, which means that he's available in the police searches for free. You don't have to pay anything to get Tom, to level up Tom, to awaken Tom, or anything like that. Which means he's older, his skills aren't as impactful as the newer heroes, and heroes that do what he did before simply do it better. So, for example, before Adut got here, Tom was kind of your go-to fighter in the battlefield. And then Adut showed up, and now Tom kind of gets seated back a little bit farther down the line. But he's still super good, and in my opinion, he's got the most utility. Because he can be used on offense to lead a line. He can be used on defense to co-lead a line. He can be used to garrison, right? So he can be used all over the place. He can be used in the field, in garrison. He can be used in rallies. He's effective kind of in a lot of places. Okay? So let's take a look real quick at his talents. Again, very much the same thing. Defensive line the way it is. This one I went into the infantry squad a little bit deeper to make everything a little bit tankier. Totally up to you how you want to level them up. But again, pretty much the same thing. There's a strategy button. They're going to also tell you if you want to go into garrison, how to do him in garrison well. They're going to tell you who to pair him with, right? So that strategy button is there for almost every hero. And I say almost every hero because for some reason there isn't one for Martin. I don't know, which we'll go over later. And there isn't one, there are a couple that they don't have a strategy button for, but 90% of them do. So take a look at the strategy button and take some information from there as well. Okay. So Tom, we've taken a look at the talent tree. Let's take a look at his skills. One of his rage skill, he's going to slam into a target in front, deal 6,000 damage. He's going to boost squad morale, healing lightly wounded troops to a factor of 4,000, and reduces damage taken by you and nearby allies by 15%. Okay? So, if you look at what he does a chunk of damage, heals a chunk of damage, and then makes you tankier. And up to 3 squads in total. So again, this is why he's good in the battlefield. If you're rolling with him in 3 other marches, he's going to boost your reduces, he makes everybody else tankier for that purpose. So he has got a good punch, he's got a decent heal. It's a nice little like a nice little 2-punch combo. It adds to his sustainability and makes people tankier. Next one, passive skill, double quarterback. Squad's counterattacks have a 10% chance to deal bonus damage, factor 2,000, up to factor 4,000. So squad's counterattacks have a 10% chance to deal an additional 4,000 just once every 3 seconds. It's not bad. It's a nice little a little uppercut, nice little bonus. I'm not a huge fan of these 10% chance ones, but again, this is why he's ranked a little bit lower. Here we go, a flat infantry squad defense and a flat HP buff. Now, here's something interesting. We were talking about that decimal point. This is one skill. So the infantry squad defense by 15% and infantry squad HP by 15%. Okay? This isn't an infantry squad defense by 15% and the whole squad by 15%. This is just infantry squad getting 15% of your HP and squad defense. Okay? There is a difference. Watch out for that period. That's what she said. Next, we're going to look at absolute defense. A passive skill here increases healing effects by an extra 30%. So if you have him with Thunder, for example, who heals a lot, this just increases his healing drastically. When he's on defense in the garrisoning, he increases infantry squad by an additional 18%. So you can see why he does really well kind of everywhere. He's got good sustain. He wants to fight in the battlefield as well. He makes things tankier. He does additional damage. Like, it's a good all-around pick for kind of wherever you want to run him in infantry. And then obviously when you awaken him, his main ability gets a little bit of a buff. He ends up doing more damage. He ends up healing more, and then he ends up up to 5 squads instead of 3, so he does better out in the field. Okay. Now, why is this effective? Well, this is why he's ranked 6th. His kind of best play is a little bit everywhere. He doesn't see as much play now as what he used to, which is why he's ranked where he is. But in my opinion, he's probably still suited for field battle. He helps Adut and Myamoto and Robert really well in the field. But he's also typically going to be running as a co-lead to those 2 or to those 3 people. Just because they have this, they're going to be pumping out more skills damage, which means that his heal is more effective. And like we all know, it's the leader that brings everything. The co-leader only brings their skills, right? So the reason why he's ranked 6 is because he's not going to be leading any of these lines. He's going to be the co-leader to most of these lines out in the battlefield. And the only time that he would really, lead the line himself is if you have him garrisoning your shelter with Rygro as your co-lead. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, it's not that Tom is bad. It's just that other heroes are much better suited for what he does. Okay? Next, let's look at Robert. We're getting to the bottom of the list, guys. Just the last 2. We've got Robert. Now, Robert is a little underrated. I think he definitely can be used a lot more. But again, it's just the situation that the people that do what he does, right, infantry squad and skills, just end up doing a little bit better. If you look at his talent tree, you're going to be doing it, again, pretty much the exact same. You fill out the skills side. You want to get as much rage as you can to put out as much rage skill as you can, and then fill out the infantry squad tree to wherever you have left. Okay. If you look at his skills, let's take a look at what he does. For the rage requirement of 1,000, once you have it leveled up, 12,500, and reduces target HP by 25% for 2 seconds. So he does a ton of damage, and he actually gets another little bonus damage from this HP drop. So it's a nice little, kind of out in the field. Next, he increases infantry squad attack by 20, and then he does 16% of the damage absorbed by the shield will be deflected and dealt to the enemy. So now you're sitting here going, well, what shield? Well, this one here. When using basic attacks, there's a 20% chance to grant a shield to oneself and an allied squad for 2 seconds to a value of 2,400. So he has, it's not a direct heal. It's more of a fake heal in the sense of the shield. It's the same type of thing that Rygro puts out, right? So 2,400 can be triggered every 6 seconds. And then once that shield takes damage, 16% of it is reflected. Which is, when you're talking flat damage, that's a good number to be looking at. You don't need 40, 50, 60. That's a lot of extra damage. It makes the abilities overpowered. And then you have counterattacks having a 20% chance to burn the enemy for 1,200 every second for 3 seconds. So 12, 24 for 3,600 damage. once every 6 seconds. I mean, again, it's just a nice little extra bonus. So if you're getting to a point where you're chasing someone down and they're trying to escape, you know, those extra burn points can be what make or break someone from getting away or not. And then obviously increases burn damage dealt to squads inflicted with HP reduction by additional 50%. So when he does his rage skill, reducing HP, now you're going to be triggering burns. Those burns are going to be doing 50% more damage. You can start to see how it starts to cascade, which is why I think he has value. But again, his positions just simply get outweighed by the other characters in the game. Adut and Myamoto, for example, just simply do more out for infantry in leading those lines than what Robert does. But he still has his place. Who can you pair him with? Well, someone like Adut, Myamoto, Tom, right? Those would be good lines to have him in. You know, any of those types of situations. You're talking counter-attacking, for example. You could put him leading rallies would be a great place to have him too. But like I said, the reason why he's ranked in number 7 is simply because the people that do his job do it better than him are ranked higher. But this is exactly why we come down to number 8. My good friend and hero among men, Raiguro, simply falls to rank 8 because in all the positions that he does really well, defense, garrison, all that kind of stuff, there's just someone who does it better. Thunder does it better. Riven does what he does and does it better. Tom is kind of his counterpart. And again, the reason why he's ranked so low and the reason why he doesn't get all those buffs is because he's also a free-to-play hero. He's one you can get entirely for free in the police searches, and you can awaken him and level him up entirely for free without having to put any extra money into the game. And that simply means, unfortunately, he's not going to be as good. Okay? So he does activate a shield to first start off, which absorbs a ton of damage and returns rage, which is, again, which is really good, having that rage generation. But it's just not as potent as what we have anywhere else. Okay? He increases squad counter damage by 20%. When attacked, reduces the attack's travel speed by 25%. So running away makes it easier. But again, if you're running away, you're typically running away from riders. And some of the riders have tons of increased movement speed. So it's really not nearly as beneficial as it wants to be. Flat squad attack and defense, 15% is not as much when you compare it to others, right? Someone like Myamoto, for example, does 15%. When he talks about that, he does enemy detection 28%. So it's just that his attack and defense skills just aren't nearly what they could be. You're looking at 16% increased damage. That's all right. That's pretty okay. But 11% HP is not nearly enough. And that's only when he's garrisoning. So that's, again, reason why he doesn't have as much utility. When he's awakened, he reduces damage. So instead of increasing squad counter damage by 20%, when attacked, reduces the attacker's travel speed by 25%. It turns into reduces damage taken by squads by 5% and increases squads counter damage by 30%. When attacked, reduces the attackers by 30% once every 10 seconds. So he, again, just makes things more tanky. But again, how do I put this? It's not that he's bad. It's just that there are other better choices if you have them. He works best in garrison. You're going to put him as a co-leader to someone like Thunder. If you don't have Thunder, put him as a co-lead to Riven. If you don't have Riven, put him as a co-lead to Tom. And your garrison will do pretty well. But that's kind of how these guys rank the way that they do. It's not that I hate to repeat myself, but it's not that the heroes are bad or ranked poorly. It's just that there are better choices. Okay? But that's going to end it here, guys. That's going to end our look at the infantry heroes for Doomsday's Last Survivor for part 1 of our 5-part special. Like I mentioned, I'm going to link the heroes description or the heroes basic video in the description below, pardon me. If you haven't seen that video yet, go ahead and check it out. If you haven't hit the like button yet, go ahead and hit that. Click the bell. Make sure that you get all the reports, or you get all the notifications when they come in. Like, subscribe, follow, share to all your friends. I mean, I'm only here because you guys like what I do and I like what I do, so it sounds fun for everybody, right? Let's just keep that same mentality. But that being said, guys, that's it for me today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I am Chris, the High Guy Jacobs. And you'll see me next for our second part when we take a deep dive into the ranged heroes and hopefully help you in your path to progression on that side of things. Have a good day, folks. And as always, stay lifted.